You walk into the room and it already feels familiar. Bright walls, soft lighting, long tables placed in careful rows. Everything looks prepared for many people at once. Chairs face the same direction, music plays quietly, not to be heard, just to be felt. This is a room designed to hold agreement. Along the walls are boards, many of them, leaning, standing, pinned up, covered in images and words. Houses with large windows, open roads, clear skies, calm bodies, confident smiles, printed, not present. The boards are meant to feel personal, but together they look almost identical. No one comments on that. Similarity feels safe here. People move slowly. They lower their voices without being asked. They smile at each other in passing, the way people do in places where belief is shared. Scissors cut paper, glue sticks roll across tables, hands smooth corners, adjust angles, straighten words. The gestures are careful, almost gentle, as if the future might notice how it is handled. No one asks where these images came from. No one asks who decided what success should look like. The pictures feel familiar already, like they were chosen long before today. There is comfort in that familiarity. It removes the need to explain anything out loud. Every board faces forward, toward the same wall, toward the same imagined point ahead. The room itself seems to lean that way too, forward, always forward. The past is not discussed here. The present is quiet. Everything is about what comes next. There are moments of silence that feel planned, moments where everyone pauses together, pens stop moving, hands rest, eyes lower to the boards. These pauses are shared, even though no one calls for them. Belief doesn't need instructions when everyone already knows the rhythm. Encouraging phrases hang in the air, not spoken loudly, not questioned. They pass from one person to another like background noise. Words about alignment, about readiness, about receiving. No one asks what will happen if nothing arrives. The room feels calm, but it is not empty. It is full of expectation, full of quiet agreement, full of people trusting the same idea at the same time. Nothing dramatic happens here. Nothing needs to. The belief is already working, simply by being shared. This is where Carl Jung would quietly step closer, not to the boards themselves, but to what surrounds them, to what is missing, to what never gets pinned up. Jung was less interested in what people show and more interested in what they hide, especially when many people hide the same things together. In a room like this, desire is neat and visible. It is cut into shapes, it is labeled and organized. But fear is nowhere to be seen. Doubt does not get a picture. Uncertainty has no space on the board. These things don't disappear, they simply move out of sight. Jung called this the shadow. Not something evil, just something unwanted. The shadow grows when it is ignored. In places built on shared belief, ignoring it becomes easy. Everyone around you is doing the same thing, looking forward, choosing optimism, repeating the same hopeful language. When fear appears, it feels out of place. When doubt shows up, it feels like a personal failure rather than a normal human response. Jung would notice how comforting that is, how relieving it feels to place uncomfortable thoughts outside the room, to leave them at the door with coats and bags. Inside, only the acceptable feelings remain: hope, confidence, readiness. Anything else feels like it might disturb the atmosphere. But the shadow does not vanish just because it is not invited. It waits, it listens. It shows up in quieter ways, in the tension behind forced positivity, in the careful way people explain setbacks, in the silence that follows when someone's board does not turn into reality. These moments are brief and quickly smoothed over, but they are there. Jung believed that when the shadow is shared by many people, it becomes harder to recognize. It stops feeling personal and starts feeling normal. Everyone avoids the same questions. Everyone reassures each other with the same words. The group protects itself from discomfort, not by facing it, but by agreeing not to look. In this space, believing feels safer than knowing. Knowing would require turning the board around, asking what happens if the images stay just images, asking what part of ourselves we've pushed away to keep believing together. Jung wouldn't accuse anyone here. He would simply notice that what is unseen still shapes the room, even when no one talks about it. This is where Friedrich Nietzsche would pause and listen carefully, not with suspicion, but with patience. He would listen to the tone of certainty in the room, to how calm it sounds, to how easily people agree on what is good and what quietly becomes bad. In a space like this, belief is not loud, it is polite. Wanting more is described as healthy. Imagining success is described as responsible. People speak as if they are taking care of themselves and each other simply by believing in the right way. No one argues. There is nothing to argue about. The rules feel obvious. Nietzsche would notice how morality slips in through encouragement. Words like deserving, ready, and aligned appear often. They sound harmless, supportive even, but they slowly draw a line. On one side are those who believe correctly. On the other side are those who struggle, hesitate, or question too much. No one is shamed openly. That isn't necessary. When belief is shared, correction happens quietly. A reminder to stay positive, a suggestion to adjust your mindset, a soft explanation that doubt can block progress. The room does not punish, it redirects. Nietzsche questioned moral systems that feel natural simply because many people accept them. He would notice how easily people stop asking where these values came from. Who decided that optimism is good and hesitation is bad? Who benefits when belief becomes a measure of character? In this hall, morality does not feel imposed, it feels chosen. That makes it stronger. People monitor themselves. They adjust their thoughts before anyone else needs to. When something goes wrong, they look inward, not outward. Failure becomes personal, not structural. The belief remains untouched. Nietzsche would see how comforting that is. How stable the room feels when everyone agrees on the same explanation. If the vision works, belief is confirmed. If it doesn't, belief is not questioned. It is refined, cleaned up, reframed as a lesson. This kind of morality keeps the space calm. No conflict, no sharp edges. But it also narrows what can be said. Certain questions feel heavy. Certain thoughts feel inappropriate. Silence becomes a form of agreement. Nietzsche would not interrupt the room. He would simply observe how morality, when shared by many, becomes invisible. It stops feeling like a system and starts feeling like common sense. And once belief sounds like goodness itself, trusting it feels not just easy, but right. This is where Niccolò Machiavelli would stop listening to intentions and start watching outcomes. He cared less about what people hoped for and more about what actually shifted because of that hope. In a room like this, he would ask one quiet question. What changes when everyone believes the same thing at the same time? The hall looks neutral, calm, organized, but belief always moves something. Money changes hands, time is redirected, attention gathers in certain places and disappears from others. Some voices become central, others fade without conflict. No one announces these changes. They happen naturally, as if belief itself is doing the work. Machiavelli would notice how power here does not need force. No one is ordered to agree, no one is punished for staying silent. Participation feels voluntary. That is what makes it effective. When belief is shared, influence spreads smoothly. People repeat ideas without being asked. They defend them without realizing they are doing it. He would watch who becomes visible, who stands closer to the front, whose boards are admired, whose words carry weight in casual conversations. These shifts look small, but they matter. Influence grows through attention, long before it shows up as authority. Machiavelli would also notice who benefits even when nothing works. When promises remain unfulfilled, belief still absorbs the impact. Responsibility moves inward. People adjust themselves instead of questioning the structure. The system remains stable, the room remains full, power stays exactly where it is. This kind of power feels polite. It hides inside encouragement, inside reassurance, inside the idea that everyone here wants the same thing. When outcomes are uneven, they are explained quietly. Some people were more ready, more aligned, more committed. The explanation protects the belief and the structure around it. Machiavelli believed that the most effective power is the kind people don't notice. In this space, belief organizes behavior without commands. It directs effort without resistance. People govern themselves because the future has been clearly pictured for them. Nothing here looks manipulative. That's important. Power doesn't need to look sharp when belief does the convincing. The hall stays calm. The boards stay forward-facing. And influence continues to flow, not through control, but through shared trust in the same imagined outcome. This is where Napoleon Hill would feel most at home. He listened for belief that sounds confident, for futures described with ease, for promises that arrive fully formed, ready to be accepted. In a room like this, belief doesn't hesitate. It moves forward smoothly, carried by shared expectation. The vision boards speak Hill's language: clear goals, clear outcomes, no confusion, no ambiguity. The future is not something to discover here. It is something to claim. Pictures make it feel close. Words make it feel deserved. When many boards show similar futures, belief gains weight. It starts to feel inevitable. Hill believed that thought becomes reality when it is held firmly enough. In a crowd, that firmness multiplies. Doubt weakens when it is not echoed. Confidence grows when it is reflected back from every direction. The room itself becomes proof. So many people wouldn't believe this if it didn't work. That idea settles quietly and stays. Promises here are generous. Anyone can succeed. Anyone can receive. The only requirement is belief. That makes the system feel fair, equal, clean. If outcomes differ, belief remains untouched. The promise is never wrong. It is only incomplete. Not believed strongly enough, not visualized clearly enough, not held long enough. Hill would notice how hope becomes organized, how futures are simplified into images that can be shared, repeated, and sold without friction. When belief is packaged this way, it becomes portable, easy to teach, easy to spread, easy to trust. Especially when many people are trusting it together. In this space, belief does more than inspire. It stabilizes. It explains disappointment without breaking the structure. It keeps attention focused forward. It keeps the room full. People return not because the promise failed, but because it might still work next time. The future always remains just ahead. Hill wouldn't question the sincerity in the room. He would recognize it. He would also recognize its strength. Belief held collectively becomes resilient. It absorbs doubt. It survives contradiction. It asks very little in return except continued faith. Nothing here feels deceptive. That's important. Belief doesn't need to lie when it can offer hope instead. The boards stay upright. The hall stays ready. And the future remains open enough for everyone to step into together, trusting without knowing.